My little brother, Steven, is pretty cool. He's funny, caring, and my best friend in the whole wide world. However, he's also a bit different than most people. My mom already noticed that when we were kids. While I was constantly talking and making weird sounds, my brother didn't start talking until he was 4. The strange thing was that he started to speak in full sentences right from the start, and he only talked in movie quotes. Like one time when my brother was angry and told my mom, "Back off, Lieutenant!" I guess he heard that in some cartoon on TV. He also played with toys in his very own way. Instead of racing his cars, he would just line them up in a perfect straight line and get really upset if anyone touched them. Back then, I thought he didn't understand how to play with them. But now I know that his brain is just different than mine. Steven was diagnosed with autism when he was 6. And autism is a lifelong disability that affects social interaction and communication. It's called a spectrum because some people are mildly autistic while others are severely autistic. I'd guess that my brother is somewhere in the middle. And you can immediately tell that he's not like other kids. He'll tell you all about the world he's building in Minecraft, and he doesn't notice when people get bored or don't understand what he's talking about. He also does this thing called stimming when he's stressed. Then he always rocks forward and backwards, shaking his hands. He also gets picked on at school because he's so different. That's why his teachers talked about putting him in a special school. But Mom wanted him to go to the same school as me. She says he won't learn how to fit in with normal people if he's only with other autistic kids all the time. When I see the other kids being mean to my brother, I stop it. I've even been in trouble for standing up to his bullies, but I don't care. They don't know what my brother's like. They only see his funny way of talking, his strange habits, things that make him stand out as different. It can be hard having a brother who's autistic. My parents have spent a lot of time and money on therapies for him, which doesn't leave much for me. It's hard for us to go out as a family because Steven finds it hard to go to strange places. We tried to go to a movie once, but Steven wouldn't stop screaming because the sound was too loud for him. Instead, we watch Netflix with popcorn at home now. But even though Steven is never going to be like other people, he's still my brother and I wouldn't change him for anything. When people get to really know him, they see his sense of humor and how he'd do anything to help someone. He might have a disability, but he's one of the nicest people I know. Nicer than many so-called normal people.
And that's Habatola from Egypt is going to give us a briefing on that.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see you. Before start, I am Hibatullah Hassan from Egypt, 30 years old, psychologist and researching in psychology in general. Start to autistic. Okay.
Yeah. So what is autism?
What is autism? Autism is a complex lifelong developmental disability. The type of call appears during early childhood. I'm sorry for my language. It's not very good. يعني not well.
It's very good.
Thank you. Can impact a person's social skills, communication, and relationships and self-regulation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And what are the causes of autism?
Again.
What are the causes of autism?
Are you mean types of autism?
Yeah, so why do we have autism? Why are people autistic? Why do we?
It is three types: autistic disorder and Asperger syndrome. And pervasive developmental disorder.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's really helpful. Thank you. So if we go on to the third question, and that's coming from Monica in Zambia. Monica, are we here?
And good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Actually, it's afternoon here, and I'm very, I'm very happy to be here. And I thank you very much for inviting me, International Women in Psychology, to speak on this platform. I'm going to briefly speak about the signs and symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. I must mention that the symptoms can start as early as 12 to 18 months. So we're going to notice the symptoms in children as early as 12 to 18 months. The signs and symptoms mainly involve a difficulty with communication and social interactions. So we have difficulty in communication and social interactions, and also restricted interest and repetitive behavior. So we have restricted interest and repetitive behavior. I'm going to give some examples of difficulty in social skills. I'm going to start with social skills, then I'm going to continue with the difficulties in communication. Okay, so a child will not respond to their name by the age of 12 months, and they will avoid eye contact. These children will prefer to play alone, and they will not share interests with others. They will only play or interact with others to achieve their desired goal. Then we'll also notice a flat or inappropriate facial expression. So what they say and what they mean does not correlate. Okay. We'll also notice they would have difficulty with personal space and boundaries, and they'll also avoid and restrict physical contact. They will also have trouble understanding other people's feelings, and as well as not being able to take what others are saying into consideration. They'll only consider themselves what they do. Okay, then I'm going to move along to a difficulty in communications, the signs and symptoms that concerns communication. So here we'll notice delayed speech and language skills. So a child will fail to start speaking at an appropriate age, and they'll repeat words and phrases over and over again. Okay, so they'll also have problems with pronouns. Instead of saying I, they might say you. They will give unrelated answers to questions. They will also not be able to point or understand pointing at things or being pointed at. An example of is they have difficulty in waving, saying goodbye. Another symptom with communication is they'll find it difficult to pretend play, such as playing a toy or flying an airplane or feeding a doll. And the last one here on communication is they do not understand jokes, or they do not take sarcasm or teasing lightly. Okay. Then the other one I want to point out is they get very upset with slight changes in routine. So this children or people with autism are very good. They want to have a routine. So if there's a change in a slight of routine, they will have problems with that. They're very sensitive or more sensitive to others to sensory inputs such as lights, noise, clothing, colors, and temperature. So they'll be sensitive more than others. And the last thing that I'm going to say is they also have problems with sleep and irritability. So they probably will sleep. Their sleep pattern is a problem. Maybe they'll sleep more or they'll sleep less than others, and they're easily irritable. I thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really well put. Thank you. So
Yeah.
our next question, we're going to go on to our next question, and that's coming from Oluwasun from Nigeria. Hopefully I've said your name correctly. She dropped off the call. She dropped off. What if autism is left untreated?
Okay, my name is Oluwaseun Koliosho from Nigeria. I'm very glad to be a part of this platform, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity given to me. So my question is, what if autism is left untreated? Because just like the other psychologists here, they've talked to us about what autism is, and they've also given us some.
Oh, I think we've lost you there a minute. We've got a bit of a bandwidth problem. Hello? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Question. Now, the following will occur if autism is left untreated. The first thing I have here is that that individual's condition will degenerate into a severe mental health issue, which can result into serious functional impairments, which could interfere and limit the individual's life activities. So it's more or less as if that individual is kind of rendered, handicapped. And then secondly, the individual becomes a burden, not just to him or herself, but also to those around him or her. And then the individual will find it difficult to regulate visual perception. The individual would develop poor social and communication skills, which he or she is supposed to actually learn during the course of therapy. And then processing difficulties, and will begin to battle with sensory overload, which are some of the things that should have been handled during the course of therapy. And then finally, that child or individual will not be able to walk around their deficits. Or should not be able to walk around their deficits, and then also be able to make use of their talents. Because though you can say that the individual is either the child or the individual is autistic, they all have their own various talents. And if treatment does not occur, if treatment does not happen, he or she will not be able to, make use of make use of the talents that that individual has. So that's what I have here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was really useful. I think we had a few bandwidth problems there, or I did at my end, so hopefully you would have all caught that. But we'll capture some questions at the end. So the fifth question we've got comes from Regina from Belarus. And how is autism diagnosed?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello, welcome.
Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Okay,
you.
great. Okay. I'm happy to hear. Thank you for inviting me. So, my question is how autism is diagnosed. So, the first thing to mention, there is no particular test to diagnose autism for 100%. And usually, doctors use a lot of tests and screening and evaluations. The screening can start from 2 years of life, 18. The symptoms start to show from 18 months of life, and it's very important to start the screening on the early stage to have the early identification of the autism, because it will benefit for the early diagnosis and further intervention. Usually, the first thing to do is to do the MCHAT, which is a modified checklist for autism in toddlers. When the doctor, pediatrician, for example, or the parents do a small screening in 20 questions regarding the child's behavior, their communication, and etc. But it's important to note as well that this is not the tool which states the child has autism or not. It just shows the level of risk. For example, this chart shows like low risk, medium, or high risk. Also, it's very important to know that sometimes even this chart might not show it, and you still have to run some additional tests to diagnose autism. Or sometimes when it shows that the child has it, it might not have it, because sometimes children have problem with their vision or hearing. So additional tests are really highly required to diagnose autism. So when we speak about those additional tests, as I said, it may be visual or audio tests to rule out any issues related with vision and hearing which aren't related to autism. It's a behavioral evaluation. It's sometimes development questionnaires. For example, there is a questionnaire called Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, or even DNA testing. But however, there is there's a remark that autism cannot be diagnosed by DNA testing. Okay, so it's kind of it's just additional tests which might help mapping interventions or rule out some other issues which toddler child might have. So because there is no official test to diagnose autism, there is 3 steps to diagnose autism. First of all, it's development screening. As I said, this MCHAT can be done. You can, parent can do them. Parents can do that. Pediatrician does that, because all the pediatricians, they are aware about such tests and such screenings. The second one is additional tests, and usually it's means that it's comprehensive behavioral evaluation, when not only pediatrician, but it's completely physical and neurological examination involved, screens and tests. And the last one is the genetic testing. It's important also to mention here that laboratories can do some tests believed to be indicators of autism, but genetically you cannot prove the autism. I mean, you cannot make a DNA test or like genetic test and this child has autism. So this is a quite long way to diagnose autism, and usually takes a team to do that, like plenty of different professions involved there, start from psychologists and etc. So it's complex procedure. I hope I answered the question.
So thank you very much. That was really useful. So that kind of leads on to the final question, which is, what do we do about it? So how can it be treated? So and what's the role of the psychologist versus the psychiatrist? And I'm a positive psychologist, and I work a lot with children with ADHD and on the spectrum, as it were. And where I work with a psychiatrist is to really aid with potential further diagnosis and or medication. So I can't medicate in the UK for children with autism, and sometimes they need anti-anxiety drugs because one of the presentations of autism is high anxiety. So I would always refer them back to a psychiatrist to manage the medication. And my job would then be to work on what we call the interventions. So what can we do about it? So if they presented with certain aspects of certain aspects of autism, like inability to communicate effectively, no eye contact, empathy, etc., we would put together an intervention program over a period of time to really work with that particular child and or adult. So that leads into the final bit of the question, which is what do we do about it? Things I do with children with autism is we work a lot on communication and getting them to understand the world outside of themselves, because they can be quite insular. They don't necessarily respond well to empathy. We talked about this earlier about not being able to understand humour, etc. So we try to get them to understand the world around them. I do a lot of work with kids with animals because I use that as a metaphor, as a way to describe the world. And I find that really useful. For example, because they find it difficult to have empathy, they do seem to connect well with animals. And sorry, I just got to bring up they seem to be able to connect to animals, and that helps them to kind of start to engage with the world. There are a number of interventions you can use. Short-term intervention, kind of a quick hit, but in my experience, working with people who have autism is a long-term program of work, and it might vary at different stages of their development, i.e. when they get ready for school, when they're going into school, and then when they become teenagers because of hormonal changes, etc., and or when they become adults and then they go into relationships and start to integrate into the workplace. So it's an ongoing treatment, as the way I see it, a lifelong treatment. One of the things that we wanted to talk about is stem cell therapy. So what can we do about it? And it's still early days, I'd say, in stem cell research. So they started to do a trial in 2017 where they actually started to look at the use of stem cells to see whether it would actually improve the treatment program and intervention. So I would say it's one to watch, but I think stem cell therapy is really, we really need to understand the cause of what it is we're trying to treat and how stem cell can actually really support that treatment profile. So hopefully that's answered all the questions. So we're coming up to half an hour into our Zoom call. We've got 35 minutes. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining this fabulous Autism Summit. And if there are any comments before we close, if we can do around the table and for someone to say, you know, what their final thoughts are on what we've just talked about. Any thoughts? Anyone know?
I would like to know more about the health you mentioned. Yeah, you said that it's pretty early, that it's from 2017, the research. That maybe can you recommend something to read about that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Because
this is not it's very helpful, and to be honest, this is the first time I'm hearing about that. So I would like to know about cell therapy more. If you can recommend something to read,
yeah,
I would be really grateful.
I'll send some. What I'll do is I'll do a summary at the end and kind of summarize what I think we said and send it on the WhatsApp group. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts? Okay, well, we can bring this to a close. I think it's been a very useful, it's been lovely meeting everybody, and thank you for joining us UK time at around 11 o'clock today to talk about autism. It's been really useful. I've learnt a lot, and hopefully we can do it again. We'll stay in touch on WhatsApp, and it's fabulous meeting all these amazing professionals all around the world doing amazing work. So thank you all very much and have a fabulous Sunday.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
having us.
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and have a fabulous day.
You too.
Bye.
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 Bye.